honestly, up until just about now, honestly, really, up until just about right now, I don't think I ever really felt stronger and such in support of the real world than I did cyberspace. But tonight and after a bunch of arguing with people on social media that this was in fact white nationalists that were responsible for smashing things and such, and getting essentially nowhere because of people's sacred cows, that this was the anti-Tifa that were responsible for things. The people that are really proving very quickly that they're not capable of thinking critically, the president of the United States who accused Antifa of being responsible for this is a proven liar. Our media has hundreds documented. I mean, like, how many lies? President Trump has made 18,000 false or misleading claims in 170 days. This guy is, it's out in the WAPO. I'll link the article in the underbar. It's in fact provably true that he's a lying piece of shit. In fact, at this point, with the number of lies the president has told, it's pretty clear from all the evidence that essentially this is a man that is almost biologically incapable of telling the truth. And it would be safer to assume that every claim he makes is a lie until proven otherwise. And yet, he points the finger at Antifa, and people take him seriously because what? He's the president of the United States? And nothing more? I mean, even with the media basically proving that he has basically perjured himself to us thousands of fucking times. The president of the United States right now isn't fit to be the president of the Dog Catchers Club. To be the local dog catcher at some very small municipality. He isn't fit to even be local dog catcher. And yet he has managed to weasel his way into the White House on the basis of the fact that he is merely a businessman. Because apparently, apparently there's a very popular, although shitty, ideology in the United States that we should have a businessman as our president. But really, in a diverse field of people that we could have picked to be our CEO in the White House, we had to go with this asshole of all the CEOs. I mean, you can't find one CEO that would be better than this clown to these dipshits. I mean, this dickweed that happens to be our president has failed at most of his businesses. In investigations of them, most of them went under. Our president doesn't appear to be good at much of anything in the game of capitalism except self-promoting. He's really good at getting his name all over a bunch of things. I mean, if you wanted a spokesman to come out and promote your product or something, he can get a lot of attention on it very easily. That's about it. That's what he's good for. As far as running his own businesses, though, he's a miserable fucking failure at it. His businesses, he couldn't even run Atlantic City. He had to be bailed out at that casino multiple times. And you might say, well, there was a depression going on, but it's a fucking casino! He couldn't manage a fucking casino! I mean, all you have to do is get people drunk, and have girls that work for you with big tits, basically, trying to serve them drinks, so they make irrational decisions and keep throwing money down the machines. I mean, it's that easy. He can't even do that much. He failed at that operation, and I can't. I cannot. But, as far as the real world is concerned, and speaking up for it, in the real world, we're getting articles from the Daily Beast. The race war wannabes could make police protests go nuclear. In the real world, there's protests all over downtown Portland, in the streets even still. In the real world, off social media, in courts of law all over the country, investigators are finding out that, in fact, in spite of the fact that people on social media don't want to believe that it was anti-Tifa, that it don't want to believe that it wasn't anti-Tifa, they're finding that the people that have been smashing things are, in fact, as I've alleged, right-wingers. That's happening in real time, in the real world, off social media, which means all the dipshits who have dismissed this, who have reacted to me with vitriol and dismissiveness and laughed at me, accused me of peddling my own conspiracy theory and all that, it doesn't mean dick at all. Because eventually, in courts of law, all this is going to be proven. Which means that, as far as the United States government is concerned, and in all of its courts of law, everything will be provably true. And we know this because the media has gone and done the investigative work and their investigative homework, where there's tons of evidence and such, and you might say that I don't trust the Daily Beast, or, they're not credible, but, it's out in publication after publication after publication, raw story, you could go on and on. If that's another publication you block, it doesn't matter. Eventually, the truth is going to out at some point, and especially in a court of law, and it's going to come out that this was all a bunch of boogaloo assholes that are trying to trigger their race war to slaughter a bunch of people, just as I alleged, and when it does, and they get convicted, all you people who have laughed at me, have dismissed me, have written your little comments in my section calling me a liar, do you know what's going to happen, essentially? All that, at that point when I come back to gloat and say I was right about all this, when they get convicted, if on that video you leave your little liar comments, you will be committing an act of libel, and I can have the information, your information subpoenaed from YouTube, your IP address, and then your location subpoenaed from your, actual ISP, and then at that point, I can come after you personally for daring to insinuate that I lied. What are you going to do then? You left it in my comments section and you're legally accountable for it. And if you make a video attacking me, it'll be libel too. It's pretty clear that in spite of the general public, and American people's reluctance to believe that this was in fact white nationalist, at least as far as social media is concerned, in the real world, what is happening is that the investigators are finding out that it was white nationalist. You didn't want to believe it. Well, tough shit. It's about to come out. And in that, I'm guessing the real world is a little bit better than the craziness here on social media.